Streaming.
Dear friends, brothers, sisters, comrades, supporters, and family, last but not least, I have been reluctant to talk about my eye problems. The reasons may have eluded some, but I explained that, in the context of being in prison, any sign of weakness is to be avoided at all costs. These are, unlike many other institutions in society, heavily male and therefore gender conscious in a way that society is not. Weakness brings predation. So I kept it quiet. And I kept it quiet simply because I wrongly believed that once I got examined and once it was clear that this was a real visual contextual problem, that I would get a rather quick response. Boy, was I wrong. I was, as the saying goes, as wrong as two left feet. What I got was evaluation after evaluation after evaluation after evaluation, literally. It was only when I went outside and those prior evaluations were repeated by a noted ophthalmologist that the ball began to roll. And even then, the ball rolled exceedingly slowly. I have been, for all intents and purposes, unable to read, unable to write, unable to see anything more than the masthead of a newspaper and not even its headlines. Blurry television, bursts of color. The television is my radio now. I have been in that state for the better part of 8 months and counting. I would never have guessed this, but this is where we are. And so it took those kinds of conditions and the analysis of the evaluations I told you about to move us when we should have been moving quicker, earlier. I apologize for my delay. I thank you for your patience, but our patience is nearing an end. We are working, we are moving, and we're trying to resolve the situation and hope that it is not too late. 7 months, 8 months of being in the shadows and in the darkness is 8 months too many. With love, not fear, this is Mumia, Abu-Jamal.
Peace, peace, peace. Free the land, free the land. What's the call? Free them all. Hope everybody is well. Free Mumia Abu-Jamal. Welcome to today's press conference to discuss the need for the urgent medical treatment for political prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal. We're here with the campaign to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, which represents a coalition of many organizations, entities, and individuals who have been for decades working not only towards Mumia Abu-Jamal's release, but ultimately for his optimum health while he is imprisoned. And as you have heard, and as you may have seen with this week's press release, he has been dealing with a multitude of issues, including more recently attacks on his eyesight, which really put him as he says, slow walking to blindness. We thank you first and foremost for joining us tonight. You could be anywhere, but you were here with us. And for tonight, we really thank our press who can join us today. If you are a member of the press, please make that due in the chat. Please let us know because we will be highlighting your questions during our question and answer portion. We want to make sure that we cover this story appropriately. And of course, we want to give a shout out to our movement press out there, our radical press as well, who have been covering this since the beginning. We want to get to several speakers today who are going to outline several areas based on not only his medical care, but also the urgent need for action, which includes you. Which includes your ability to make phone calls, to make emails, and to also organize in your own cities. Tap in with us, tap in with us, tap in with us. Also donate as well. This work needs you. And ultimately, Mumia Abu-Jamal and all political prisoners and all prisoners need you as well. So once again, we thank you again for again joining us. And those who are tapping in, please share the live YouTube link. It is on the page for the campaign to bring Mumia home. Bring Mumia home page. You can see the live YouTube link to share right now with your networks on social media. We want to be able to amplify this story, amplify this press conference, and amplify this important, urgent message. Please share this live link right now on YouTube at the Bring Me Your homepage right now on your Instagram, X, and otherwise. Thank you so much in advance for doing so. And with that being said, family, I want to pass it off to our co-host as well and our lead moderator for today's press conference, our champion, our sister Sophia, please.
Thank you, Brother Gabe. Hopefully folks can hear me just fine. Thank you again for being here tonight with us, and we do appreciate everyone's time. We won't be taking up much time. We will be starting again, just to reiterate that we have a Q&A. We ask that folks please put their questions in the Q&A, and we'll have a Q&A section after, so those questions can be answered, and some may actually be answered during the program inside the Q&A. Please share the YouTube link, and we will have other information in terms of who to reach, who to call, going up during the rest of the show, so be on the lookout for that. And again, once again, thank you for being here, everyone, and we shall get started with our first panelist of the evening, which is Dr. Ricardo Alvarez, Mumia's chosen doctor. Dr. Ricardo.
Let me get this queued up. So good evening. I want to thank my colleagues, the journalists, the archivists who are recording this for history, and all of Mumia's loving and dedicated supporters. We unmute. Are we good now? Can you hear me? Okay, great.
Yes.
So good evening. I want to thank my colleagues, the journalists, the archivists who are recording for history, and all of Mumia's loving and dedicated supporters. And of course, Mumia, who I consider to be an enlightened and loving being who teaches love, not fear. My name is Dr. Ricardo Alvarez. I'm a Harvard graduate of medical sociology, a UCSF graduate of family practice, and a CHCF fellow in healthcare leadership, and Mumia's trauma-informed Western medical consultant. I assert that Mr. Abu-Jamal is now at risk of permanent blindness due to the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, the PADOC's repeated pattern of medical neglect and delay. As determined by an independent ophthalmologist, he must have simple but vision-saving immediate medical and surgical treatments to treat the bleeding in his eye that is a complication of proliferative diabetic retinopathy and the complications of posterior cataract surgery. I further assert, as part of a multidisciplinary team, that Mr. Abu-Jamal is subjected to institutional elder abuse as a result of the compelling court-documented harms to the organs of his body from deliberate medical neglect and from the compelling legal, policy, and professional data and analysis that identifies the safety of release of our elders in captivity in our nation of mass incarceration. I assert my claims in the context of my patient's innocence. Mumia Abu-Jamal, an innocent journalist, scholar, and critic of police brutality, was unjustly arrested by one of the nation's most corrupt precincts in history. At the time of his arrest, the 1981 Philadelphia 6th Precinct was under an unprecedented federal investigation. About 1/3 of the 35 officers who arrested Mumia were subsequently convicted of rank corruption, extortion, tampering with evidence, and more horrors that shock the consciousness. Please take note of this as journalists. This is a compelling story of the larger narrative of corruption. Mumia has well-founded basis of institutional distrust. We are not debating if Mumia has been harmed. Court-documented evidence of medical neglect and administrative violence reveals a near-fatal ICU admission for diabetic coma induced by negligent administration of repeated steroids, despite evidence of high blood sugars, and liver cirrhosis induced by deliberate and aggressive efforts by the PADOC to deny him life-saving but costly hepatitis C treatment. He is alive because of all of your support. In a brief timeline, in 2015, Mumia suffered the diabetic coma from medical negligence and a resultant diabetic retinopathy, which is the primary cause of blindness in the nation and requires regular monitoring. In 2019, he had bilateral cataract surgery. Now, in November of 2024, he was scheduled for an on-site eye appointment, which was rescheduled. We now move to this year. In January of 2025, his on-site eye appointment was canceled due to inclement weather. Around February and March of this year, Mumia now begins to experience a cloudiness of vision. He rapidly files a grievance. It's now March of 2025, and he obtains a visit with a contracted on-site optometry technician who states that he has a known complication of cataract surgery, sometimes called secondary cataracts or posterior capsular opacification, PCO, which can be resolved by a 1-minute laser procedure. But instead of being referred to treatment, he's referred to more testing. We are now in April of 2025, and Mumia is now seen by an on-site contracted optometrist who again states that he needs a 1-minute simple laser procedure, but is referred for more testing. By April, the medical team and the legal team retains a highly qualified ophthalmologist who begins review of records and supports the urgency of off-site evaluation and treatment by the appropriate licensing level and off-site treatment. By May of 2025, the legal team escalates urgency for treatment. It's now late June in 2025. He finally receives a more thorough off-site exam after advocacy, which reveals, in addition, a vitreal hemorrhage, which is a complication of his diabetic retinopathy. It is late August by the time by which the records from the late June testing are now reviewed by Mumia's paid expert consultant, and the progression of his visual acuity is documented to legal blindness, and the risk of permanent blindness prompts Mumia to engage now in a public campaign. And here we are in September of 2025 approaching, and Mumia is finally engaged with a retinal specialist, which is the appropriate licensing level. We are still not clear that at that visit, he will receive these very simple treatments. Now, I want to say that our demand is in transition to Mumia's freedom, which is the only treatment from institutional elder abuse and violence and neglect And it also includes a demand to timely access to medical records. That is my 7 minutes. I want to be respectful of my colleagues. And I want to close, if you'll allow me, with Mumia's words. This is an examination of healthcare under the pathologies of relationship. There is litigation that delay can be consistent with denial. There is such a case. If they take too damn long, it is no damn good. This is not a humane occupation. It cares about its power and profits, not the prisoners. A prisoner under their captivity is not who they care about. Of that, I have no illusion. Thank you again, and I now defer.
Thank you, Dr. Alvarez, for your words and for informing us and sharing some of Mumia's words. Thank you again. That was really great. Okay, so we're moving on to our next speaker. Next, we have Professor Mark Taylor. And Professor Mark Taylor will be speaking more with us about his time with Mumia, visiting Mumia, and being able to go a bit further onto what Dr. Alvarez has just shared. Professor Mark, you're on.
Thank you very much to everybody for organizing this important emergency webinar. Dr. Alvarez has set the medical context well. Let me be clear about the perspective from which I speak now. After years of working to coordinate the organization I founded, Educators for Mumia, I now still visit by video call with him at least once a month, in-person visits with Mumia at least every other month. For nearly 10 years, I was designated spiritual advisor. In June of this year, Mumia granted me, along with Dr. Alvarez, HIPAA status, enabling me to have access to reports on his medical condition. He didn't do this because I have medical expertise. I do not. I'm a professor of religious and theological studies, trained at the University of Chicago and teaching at Princeton Theological Seminary now. I've especially been interested in walking with him closely as he works on his dissertation on Frantz Fanon for the University of California, Santa Cruz. He asked me to serve with HIPAA status, I think, because he knows I have for years, especially recently, been a frequent caller into the prison's health department, trying to keep it doing right by Mumia's health needs. At the very least, it was a way to let them know that the whole world was watching. Tonight, I find myself just returned yesterday from an international consultation in Istanbul, Turkey, where liberation theologians and other thinkers and activists from 6 sites of genocide deliberated on genocide and mass murder. Present were activists and scholars from not only Palestine, but also Sudan, Sri Lanka, Guatemala, West Papua, Rwanda, and Namibia. All these killing sites at which European and especially US agents of racist imperialism and capitalism have lain waste to populations. The dynamics of all this Mumia has written about, as in his 3-volume work with Steve Vittoria, Murder Incorporated. I'm, of course, deeply disturbed to come back yesterday and find that we have to hold this emergency press conference, but do so we must to secure for Mumia what should be pro forma maintenance care of his eye health. He should have had his surgery and treatment scheduled in at least in April or May. After repeated testing, probably too many tests of his eyes began in March. Dr. Alvarez and Dr. Fernandez and I all wrote letters to the warden, the health department, copying the Department of Corrections chief counsel, asking why Mumia was being told there were no written reports of what doctors had told him after the exams. This poor reporting was part of the delay. I was also making calls to the health department during this time, asking what's up with anyone whose ear I could catch. Earlier in June of this year, I had another trip, this time to the West Bank in Palestine, as the Gaza genocide was then in full gear. The West Bank has long been in conditions of slow genocide, while the spectacular final solution type genocide is administered by US-backed Israel in Gaza. Mumia knows all about this lethal slowness, talking as he does about slow death row, slow structural violence. So do the peoples of Palestine and elsewhere. Upon my return from Palestine, I was astounded to learn in July that Mumia still hadn't had what was reported to me as relatively simple surgery. There still was no date scheduled for Mumia's eye surgery, so I made more calls. On July 7, I received confirmation that he had been approved for eye care by outside providers, but that no dates had been set. I called Mumia and told by way of Dr. Fernandez what the situation was. Soon we found out that he was scheduled for September. Of special note, I was told that a section of the medical form being summarized for me from health department officials had a place for designating Mumia's degree of severity concerning his eyes. The answer on that form regarding severity was, quote, none, close quote. No severity. Might be that someone entered that word in good faith, thinking that it was not serious, as many of us were being told. But given what we now know from his special outside ophthalmologist, that Mumia suffers from what he terms diabetic retinopathy induced by improper treatment with a steroid by prison doctors back in 2015, it seems evident that someone should have been more vigilant. Not to analyze a person's health from the perspective of their fuller medical history is neglectful. And as I told several people throughout this delay, my colleagues and friends who are aging into their 70s as I am are not having to wait 2 to 3 months even, much less 5, 6, or 8 months for corrective surgery for what is often something less needed than what Mumia needs now. Of course, as you all know, this is prison in America. And as with the condition of many in poor communities or among those without health care, this kind of neglect is not the exception, but all too often is the rule. It's one of the reasons why I believe the prisons cannot care for Mumia or many others suffering health conditions and aging as masses are in our mass incarceration system today. But friends, I think it gets worse. There is yet another matter that should give us all special concern and move us to action. Over the many calls I have made, especially recently, from those I have heard, it's apparent to me that officials in the health department schedule care for prisoners in regular consultation with and subject to, quote, the approval of the higher ups, meaning their supervisors in the Department of Corrections and the state of Pennsylvania. This confirms for me what we all have seen over the years, that the higher ups in the DOC, in the Philly and PA criminal justice establishments want Mumia not only imprisoned, they want his voice quashed. They want him dead. They're not about providing any proficient medical care. They only do what is right by Mumia when our movement combined with legal action make them do so. Any letting down of our guard, and they will work to hasten him toward ill health, disease, and death. I am committing to work harder than I have before. We cannot let them kill Mumia. Mumia is an imprisoned Black man in the USA living at the heart of a killer capitalist and white racist imperial state. Murder Incorporated indeed, as his 3-volume work says. He has named the many dimensions of this killing in years of courageous speech and writing. He has highlighted the nefarious ways the U.S. spreads mass death at home and abroad. He did this for my class just last semester in a phone call to students from prison. And I am freshly reminded from hearing the activists of Palestine and Sudan, of Sri Lanka and Guatemala, how the U.S. state kills by negligence and outright planning. To stop the killing of Mumia, we need each other now, our collective power, to spawn an extraordinary solidarity. It is this much talked about power of the people that we need. That is no mere slogan. It is a real power, as again I have been reminded this week from so many everyday activists on the underside of U.S. empire around the world. Our solidarity is the needed counter-imperial force. It is with this solidarity that we must deliver Mumia from the Murder Incorporated that he has been fighting all his life. That fight continues to be ours as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Taylor, for being with us and for sharing those important words. And now that the health update is complete, again, we want to encourage folks to please add their questions, your health questions into the chat, and we will get answering those, especially towards the end when we get to Q&A. So next we have Mama Julia Wright. Mama Julia Wright is our international comrade and friend, and she will now speak further on the international side of things. Mama Julia, you're on.
So I will begin with the Global South, and I will end with the Global South. We used to say the world is watching. Today, as the news of Mumia's near blindness spreads, the world is moving. A world where the assault against human rights everywhere is seen through the lens of Gaza. Mumia has written steadfastly in tribute to the Palestinian resistance and called Gaza an open-air prison. He knows because he lives in a closed one. He knows because just as there is man-made famine in Gaza, there is deliberately managed and escalating malnutrition in U.S. prisons. He knows because he is one of our finest journalists and is aware of Francesca Albanese's Economy of Genocide. Likewise, there is a network of U.S. multi-billionaire private companies making big business profits on insecure access to food and the violation of the right to health right here in our prisons. Aramark is the company serving dog food to Mumia and his co-prisoners at 99 cents a meal. WellPath battens on pocketing the revenue from the denial of care to the incarcerated. Mumia's prison, U.S. prisons, are increasingly miniature Gazas. The news broke in Berlin, Germany, Heidelberg, and Nuremberg. The Mumia Collective has been white knighting ever since. In Paris, France, the French Collective to Free Mumia has shared the news with each of its 100 member groups. In 2003, Mumia was recognized honorary citizen of the city of Paris, the first of which was Picasso. The mayors of 23 other cities in France followed suit. The city of Paris and those 23 mayors are contacting the governor, the Philly DA, and the prison as we speak. In Paris, France, the collective that released George Abdallah, the longest held political prisoner in Europe, has had a teach-in. In London, Great Britain, the Mumia collective there has notified the International Political Prisoners Organization, which is publicizing a call to action, and the messages continue to pour in. But I want to finish with the Global South. Kezia Nuissier, a young man in the native birthplace of Frantz Fanon, Martinique, upon learning the news, sent us a message. Kezia himself is near blind, following the severing of his optic nerve by the armed police of Martinique as he was protesting the use of a carcinogenetic pesticide by the French on his native soil. This took place in 2020. The torture technique of severing the optic nerve used on his eye was borrowed from the French paratrooper units in Algeria during the French settler occupation there. In terms of occupation, nothing is lost, all can be recycled with impunity. Here are Kezia's words. Emmett Mumia. 70 years gone, yet Mumia still screams through every stolen breath, every life torn down by hate. A boy of 14, his broken face held up to the world, a mirror of America, too ashamed to face herself. 4 centuries of chains pressed into his young skin. And now, behind cold concrete and razor wire, Mumia fights for the light. His sight fading from the cruelty of a system that would rather blind than heal, rather punish than set free. From Till to Mumia, pain stitches the Black story. But their names carry fire, embers that refuse to die. No night is dark enough to erase their faces, no prison high enough to still their voices. Emmett became a martyr. Mumia is still alive, and we carry the fire. Kezia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mama Julia, right, for your strong words and making those connections to the Global South. That was very touching to hear. Thank you again. We now have our last speaker of the program. We have Dr. Johanna Fernandez, Professor Fernandez, and we will be hearing more about what we can do next. Dr. Fernandez, you're on.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who's organized this call to action. I'd like to especially thank Dr. Ricardo Alvarez and Dr. Mark Taylor because we've been working hard at amplifying the message that we've heard from Mumia all his life, which is that social movements change society and change history because they force and pressure authorities to address our needs and to uphold our rights. And that's essentially the essence of this press conference, that we want people to be educated about what's going on, to see the connections to broader crises in our country and around the world, and take action locally, to call the prison, because the prison and the DOC has historically responded to calls whenever prisoners or Mumia have fallen into crisis. We want folks to take action locally, protests. We want folks to watch a film perhaps around Mumia's case at your school, at your workplace, at your church, at your community center, and figure out a strategy for pressuring the PA DOC to stop the blinding of Mumia. So Mumia Abu-Jamal's eyesight has gone progressively dark in the last 7 to 12 months, as you've heard. And for months now, Mumia has been talking to us about what's going on, and he sought resolution to this urgent medical problem. Instead of a solution, however, he's been met with delay. As you heard from him and from Dr. Taylor and Dr. Alvarez, he also got a litany of tests by non-specialists. And finally, there's outright denial of adequate care and urgent care. So what did Mumia do in response? He filed internal grievances, which is what you have to do in the prisons if your rights are violated. You have to go through an internal process that is very lengthy, in which you assert your right through a grievance procedure. He fought back against impossible conditions. And we have to say that the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections has entirely abandoned its duty, and it has to be held accountable. What's the result of all of this for Mumia? A man who had nearly normal vision at 20/30, just last year, now registers 20/200, which is essentially legally blind. Unnecessarily, because all of the conditions Mumia has can be addressed medically. But without immediate treatment and surgery, Mumia faces permanent, irreversible blindness. So how do we get here? The Pennsylvania Department of Corrections failed to adequately monitor Mumia's vision. Exams from 2024 to 2025 showed a sharp deterioration, demanding immediate intervention. Despite knowing the urgency, the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections waited until this past July, that just passed, July 2026, a month ago. They waited till this past July to act, and then pushed surgery off, the surgery he needed for a cataract complication, to an unspecified date in September. And they never mentioned the eye treatment he needs immediately, according to an ophthalmological expert we retained, who said that if my patient came to me today on a Friday with Mumia's problems, I would be duty bound to care for them immediately on Monday. Mumia's current eye problems are not accidental. They are the direct result of years of medical dereliction. Back in 2015, prison doctors gave him steroids for a skin condition. The dose was improper, and the monitoring was non-existent. So when you give a patient steroids, you have to monitor that their blood sugar doesn't rise. That reckless misconduct of non-monitoring in the face of an improper dose of steroids drove Mumia into a diabetic coma. He lived through the diabetic coma, but the damage was permanent. His eyesight has been deteriorating ever since, what they call retinal diabetes, for which he needs immediate medical treatment. That's the issue that the ophthalmological expert said needed to be treated immediately. And I just want to close quickly by saying that this is not just about Mumia. In the last 40 years, US prisons have filled with people serving life or decades-long terms, an indefensible system that's excessive and draconian and racist. Today, those prisons have become cruel nursing homes, warehouses for the aging, poor Black and brown workers swept up in the deindustrialization of the 1980s and 90s, who couldn't be employed by capitalism, are now in those prisons. What we are witnessing is elder abuse, as Dr. Ricardo Alvarez has instructed us so many times. Elder abuse of the most vile order, sanctioned by the state, paid by your tax dollars. carried out on a mass scale. This is authoritarian control. This is daily cruelty. And as we see from the turn that our society has taken, it erodes the very standards of freedom, not only for prisoners, but for all of society. When you degrade the freedom of one person and one segment of the population, you actually degrade the concept and standard of freedom for all. To quote Dr. Ricardo Alvarez, when Mumia fell fatally ill with COVID in 2021, the only treatment is freedom. We are demanding, however, immediate medical eye treatment and cataract surgery to prevent permanent blindness in the medical case of Mumia Abu-Jamal. And again, we are asking folks to call the prison, and the numbers are here, as you can see, to call the Pennsylvania DOC Secretary, Laurel Hardy. You can also email her, and you can also call the central office of the PADOC. There's a script in this flyer, and the demand is clear. He needs immediate treatment, not next week, not at the end of September. He needs it now, Monday morning. And we're asking folks to show up at the prison to protest in collective groups, if possible, at SCI Mahanoy in Pennsylvania. We're asking folks to organize locally, make calls, show a film, raise the problem of Mumia's eyesight in the context of elder abuse, in the context of the crisis of authoritarianism and cruelty and genocide that we're seeing around the world in Gaza. And this is an opportunity to strengthen our ranks and to win. We've won in the past when Mumia has fell ill and we've taken action, and we can succeed again. So that's really the call to action. Make your calls, gather in your local communities, revitalize the movement to free Mumia, and connect his freedom to the freedom of humanity, the freedom of Gaza, the freedom against predatory capitalism, and the crisis of environmental extinction that awaits us if we don't take action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fernandez, and we thank you all for being with us this evening once again. We're going to go right into our question and answers that will be sort of broken down by, once again, our comrade Sophia. This has actually ended the speaker portion of tonight's press conference, but once again, we'll be addressing any questions and answers that you all may have, particularly in particular from the press. We did see a few in the Q&A section that we will get to, and then hopefully if the family also has any additional questions for the good of the order, we will get to those as well. So once again, thank you all for joining us, even though that came on late. Once again, this is the Mumia Abu-Jamal urgent press conference for medical treatment for his eyesight. And we're going to pass it off right now to Sophia for our Q&A.
Thank you again, Brother Gabe, and to all our speakers. Many thanks for your great comments. And we have a few questions here, not in any particular order, but going back to the health side of things. We have a question here from Bob Boyle, and it does read, what has the Pennsylvania DOC stated, if anything, about why the cure has not been taking place? Have his grievances been adjudicated? Anyone can.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that we are instructed by Mumia to work as a multidisciplinary team. This really very much involves the legal team as well. it's necessary that they continue to maintain relationships within the DOC to move forward in those formal channels that set the basis for litigation. I want to share with our colleagues and those in the press a very important concept, which is exhaustion, which is the process by which all of the grievances must be filed, and the ability to have standing in the courts must exhaust all of the relative procedural matters. Now, exhaustive can also be a form of administrative violence, and none other than Bob Boyle knows this when he so expertly defended Mumia with love in the hepatitis C case, and the judge was coming, and the PADOC was seeking to deny Mumia care based on some procedural matter of some grievance that may not have been filed. And at that point, the judge looked at Mumia's lawyers and said, "What would you do if the DOC went ahead and requested me to do this?" I said, "We file tomorrow." And the judge said, "Let's go forward." So in that case, Bob, I want to share with you that we don't have knowledge of all those different steps in that legal proceedings. We are now operating in the theater of the public campaign. We know that they are diligently addressing that. One of the demands that has emerged from this action is to recognize from a trauma-informed perspective that medical records belong to Mumia. It's his damn body, as he says. And therefore, we can see that one of the major delays was just getting access to the medical records to guide the specialty review. So I know that all of those procedures, all of that legal research is happening in a parallel track, and the status of that remains in the legal team. We are clearly operating in the realm of public advocacy. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. While you're still with us, Dr. Alvarez, we have Phil Davis from WHYY in Philadelphia News. Can you please go over again the diagnosis of the diabetic retinopathy and
Yeah.
what was the cause of it? Want to confirm that it was said it was a result of improper steroid treatment, as I believe Dr. Alvarez said.
Yes. Okay. So Phil, welcome. We're really grateful for you to be here as a journalist. You know, Mumia is your brother and your colleague as a journalist, and he is part of a worldwide effort that is attacking journalists who are speaking from a place of resilient love. Now, as it relates to the diabetes retinopathy, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you an answer, and I want to make sure that we establish healthy relationships, and you'll have access through Sophia and Gabe to be able to engage with me later and get more detail. The principal matter of the diabetic coma, which was induced, was because he received a series of steroids, both shots and oral medications in 2015 in relationship to a skin condition. Steroids are frequently given for skin conditions, and it typically has a short-term course and then resolves. But what happens is, in the absence of more definitive diagnosis and work, if you uncarefully just continue to administer it, one of the side effects of the steroids is elevated glucose. I also want to clarify something else. It wasn't that it wasn't monitored. The greater danger is that it was in fact monitored, and the sugar levels were above 400, which is a critical level, and it just wasn't tracked. And then he was given more steroids on top of that. That was the basis of negligence. That went to the courts, and that demonstrated that there's court documented medical harm, which was medically induced iatrogenic diabetic ketoacidosis, for which he was in the ICU, and he survived that. Now, in terms of the effect on the eye, there is a condition called PDR, proliferative diabetic retinopathy. It's a side effect of diabetes, and it's monitored very regularly by annual exams and regular exams. And the treatments to them are very simple if caught early, but a complication of that, if not attended to, could be you could get a vitreal hemorrhage. We now have confirmation that he has that that diagnosis. So that I'm going to put that aside. In addition to that, he has a complication from the cataract surgery, which is sometimes, and the cataracts are surgically removed, but the posterior capsule can get opacified, creating cloudiness, and that is a simple laser procedure. In addition to that, he has glaucoma, for which he needs drops. I hope I've answered your question, and I want to make myself available to help guide you in this powerful narrative of Mumia Abu-Jamal's journey.
Dr. Alvarez, we do have another question from our friend Phil. What was the skin condition Abu-Jamal was being treated for in 2015?
Well, let me say that Mumia Abu-Jamal's skin condition is what I would call, I'm going to use the word multifactorial. So he has he had a very activated hepatitis C, which was for which you can have this was pre-treatment, and in the court documentation there was some evidence that that was exacerbating an underlying eczematous condition, but very severe condition. We also want to say, Phil, that the profound stresses of survival in prisons illustrate that the diseases of chronic conditions are so severe that within prisons, there's a known phenomenon of called advanced aging. It's so recognized in the medical literature and in the legal precedent that the federal prisons identifies the elder status as 50 because of that data. And some of that data is coming out of research at UCSF with colleagues that I had there. So again, I want to share with you. It's at that time it was a likely overlay of a diabetic of a skin condition from the hepatitis C exacerbation in an untreated state, and then an underlying eczematous condition.
Thank you. Another health question oh, I think we have Mumia calling in. Oh no, maybe. All right, let's keep going. He will call back. Yes. So Dr. Alvarez, Bob Lederer has asked, thanks for this highly informative session on this deliberately induced medical crisis. Can you specify where Mumia is requesting his eye surgery and other needed procedures take place? Is it a nearby facility?
Okay, so thank you, Bob, for all of your work that you do and for the question. Let me clarify that one of the challenges that we have in doing advocacy for prisons is that the prisons invoke safety as a basis of a profound degree of control. And in that regard, there are policies which prohibit us from knowing an exact date of a procedure or the exact location. Now, to give you an example of that, Mark and I traveled to the hospital when he had his open heart surgery, because we calculated that the place that they contract with is Lehigh Valley, and we had written to all of the leadership there, the medical director, the nursing team, the cardiac team. Julia did the beautiful work and brought us we had known from the previous hospitalization, the profound cruelty of 4-point shackling and the trauma that was induced. And Johanna was in consultation around a shared understanding of a trauma-informed consultation in which he was so fearful of being imprisoned, hospitalized again in 4-point restraints, that we began a campaign in advance of his surgery, knowing that he was going to have it there, not knowing the exact date, but saying, we want to let you know, here is the statement from the United Nations regarding 4-point shackling and the inhumanity of his condition. I also want to preface, as a trauma-informed medical consultant, that Mumia has been tortured. Okay, so I want to make sure the press understands this, because we're seeking you to be a part of the defense of not just Mumia, but all of us. We're seeing the level of state violence escalating that no one can feel safe. That narrative that says we can go ahead and put someone in solitary confinement for 13 years and 20 years, and that's acceptable, has been so challenged with the medical and psychological literature now. Juan Mendez was a critical informant, and Julia was instrumental in helping bring that testimony forward to say that the conditions for solitary confinement and the new emerging standards is 2 weeks before we start to see the psychological degradation that emerges. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Dr. Alvarez. And Mark, if
Can I just say something that Ricardo should clarify? It's important to note that Mumia never had diabetes. He didn't have diabetes before his diabetic coma, before the steroids. The diabetic coma was literally a condition that was the result of dereliction on the part of the prison medical care. And the consequences are epic. He now has a condition that could lead to permanent blindness. And so it's one just one injury on top of the other, right? So I think it's very important for you to clarify that, Dr. Alvarez.
okay, great. Thank you for interjecting there.
Yeah, and Johanna, one of the things I want to share with you, thank you for making that point. There's a term in medicine that's called iatrogenic, which is another way of saying medically induced by our procedures. So yes, he did not have diabetes. This was iatrogenic. It was induced through medical neglect. And I appreciate you clarifying that for our audience and that clarifying point. Yes.
Yes, thank you again. Mark or Johanna or both. Ace says, what are the best ways to share and get my students involved?
Who is this, a high school teacher, or is it a professor?
We don't know. Maybe Ace can write in the chat in the Q&A. Not sure. Yes, Mark.
I would stress two things. First of all, Mumia's audio essays are available on internet at various sources by literally the hundreds. And a professor shaping their pedagogy can match the concerns of classes on political issues very deftly with what he's written and spoken about. His words can be transformative in the classroom. Many of my colleagues have seen that. I've seen that. And that's one place to start. The other place to start is to involve them immediately in where the movement is right now. And I would stress that this calling campaign that the committee is advocating is very important. Sometimes we think of phone calling like this as a Hail Mary pass or a desperate move where our calls go in and nothing happens. We're calling somebody we don't know usually. I remember when we were calling for him to get his cataract surgery a few years ago. And I happened to visit him at one point, and he said, you know, these calls are having more impact than I thought they would have, Mumia said. He said, they are freaking out, maybe even let up a few days, he said. But within a day or two, as a result of that calling, Mumia was taken in for that cataract surgery. I mean, putting the pressure of phoning on, letting them know there's still a movement, that a cost will be paid if they don't take care of Mumia's health, that's a crucial move.
So the question is, how can you use Mumia in the classroom with your students pedagogically, right? And how might you encourage your students to find out about the case and engage in protest outside of the classroom. So pedagogically, Mumia's case is really a window into the rise of the hyper-incarceration of Black and Brown people in the post-civil rights movement era. Incarceration is the new face, one of the new faces of racism in American society, institutional racism. And a study of his case is a primer on the institutionalized forms of racism in the prosecution's office, through judicial bias, discrimination in jury selection, and police corruption and violence, and the use of the tampering with evidence on the part of police to obtain convictions. These are the pillars of institutional racism that has gotten us the title of being the greatest prison nation in history, right? So his case can be used to understand the dynamics of racism in the legal system. Mumia's voice is very elegant. You can bring his voice into the classroom. Mumia is a theorist. He's a journalist. He's a student. He's studying to be a PhD. He's getting a PhD. Something that has ceased because of his inability to read at the moment. When I've used his voice in the classroom through a call-in, which is possible, you can email us and we can figure out a way to do that. Students are shocked because prisoners are depicted as evil incarnate in society, in the media. And then you hear Mumia's voice, which is so calm and so sober and almost filled with love, that it challenges the ideology that's central to building the carceral state. Just by listening to someone's voice and just experiencing their spirit so differently than what you've been taught a prisoner spirit is about. So as my colleague said, it can be a very transformative experience. And then, students, we need to allow students to do what they do independently of us. They can be very creative, and we should identify tools like films that they can use in their own discussions, and encourage them to look to history and social movements to take action on the contemporary crises of our time, which include the incarceration of a radio journalist, veteran Black Panther, political prisoner who was framed by the Philadelphia police. What can you do? Figure it out. That's what we're encouraging others to do, not just students. But this is a moment to take the rage that we feel about everything that's happening in the world and channel it and attempt to gain to a win, right? We need wins in this moment. And this is something concrete that we can win. And on the basis of that victory, we can begin to dream and imagine others, in Mumia's case and beyond.
Absolutely. Thank you both for those detailed responses as professors yourselves. So we have a question from Akil, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. If there are court documents showing the prison system knew of his condition, can they be sued for criminal medical neglect?
Here's the danger. Yes, but we don't care. It's not a win for them to sue, and he gets, what can he get for blindness? The whole point of this, I mean, it was a fight for us to save from the hepatitis C. To give you an idea of the malevolence that was engaged, and Bob Boyle, who's on this call as a lawyer, one of the medical lawyers, is able to testify how the PADOC lawyers brought to court And I discussed this with Mumia yesterday when I went to see him. They brought to court a document that was signed by a physician, and it was only revealed later that on the stand, the physician said, "That's not my statement." And Bob Boyle had to stop and look at the judge and say, "What do you mean?" He said, "I redacted that. I didn't attest to this, and I didn't attest to that." In the court stand, they had to then go ahead and he acknowledged that this was not his true statement. And they said, "Well, when did this happen?" He said, "Well, 3 months ago, a couple of months ago." And then he said, "In the parking lot this morning." This is what we're talking about when we talk about malevolence, the deliberate harm that's done. Yes, court case, and they won that case. But as a result of that case, he suffered liver cirrhosis. That's not the win we will ever accept. I also want to share with you that even after he won in the court case, they persisted in a delay for treatment. So, and that court case, which had the false statement from this doctor, which was in the court evidence of the tampering of the PADOC legal system, it was used in a prior case and unchallenged. So we want you to know that these are what Mumia calls spiritual portals of violence. This is a great opportunity for our press and our students and our teachers and our community to understand just how violent these places of and what Mumia calls administrative violence occurs in the courts of our system, and why we are asserting absolutely Mumia's innocence. This is healthcare in transition to freedom.
Well said, Dr. Alvarez. Thank you. We have more questions coming in. Daniel is saying that they live in Lehigh Valley. So are there specific people and institutions there that they can put pressure on? I'm a member of a couple community political organizations out here that I can organize to do so.
Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania.
Yes, yes.
That's phenomenal. We need folks in Western Pennsylvania, in the middle of Pennsylvania, to take on this challenge. You're probably not that far from the PADOC. You can gather folks there and have an action there, or ask for a meeting with members of the PADOC to discuss this case and that of medical neglect in others. You should ask the question, are prisoners do prisoners have the right to the Patient Bill of Rights, right? There's a question of Mumia's records and whether he should have access to them. This is a basic right that people around the world have access to. You might want to inquire whether the DOC has the right to deny that right, the medical right to prisoners. You can show a film, right? I imagine there are people in Lehigh, Pennsylvania, who do not know about this case. There are many films about it. I made one which is called Justice on Trial, the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal. That film is a little film with a big heart. It's an hour and 15 minutes short. It's on YouTube in my YouTube page, Johanna Fernandez. Go at it. Just begin a conversation, right? We need to begin a conversation with the people around us. And this is about Mumia's freedom and Mumia's immediate medical care, but it's also about humanizing our communities, right? We've been dehumanized by the authoritarian control and cruelty of the prison system and of our society. And these gatherings are a portal into the kind of society that we want to live in. Where we don't want to live in a society that throws people away and engenders violence and cruelty at the hands of the state on a daily basis, as we've seen in Mumia's case and in so many others.
Thank you, thank you. We have
Mark wants to say something.
oh,
Just a brief word. All of our sites are important sites of struggle, but the Lehigh Valley region will be one of the very important ones to carry on this work in the ways that Dr. Fernandez has suggested. Lehigh Valley is, and around Allentown and Pottsville, as well as Frackville, where the prison is. This is an area where the guards of the prison move throughout. It's also the region, the Lehigh Valley Medical Center, where Mumia is taken for many of his appointments. Dr. Alvarez and I had to find out and went to his prison near Allentown. So holding consciousness raising activities about Mumia and about the plight of prisoners being treated in these facilities, often shackled to their beds as Mumia was, or treated in other abusive manners. Raising this consciousness in that setting of North and Northwest Pennsylvania, as in many other places, but there for Mumia especially.
And if I may just say one thing, if we can get your contact at the end of this meeting, we want to make ourselves available for those who want to take action. This is 30 years of work and research. We have well-documented letters to every single major professional association in the country, geriatric, American Medical Association, teachers unions, because this is multidisciplinary efforts. So please, we want to help be a resource for you and can help guide you so that you feel stronger. As Mumia says, these are public institutions. This is citizens engaging institutions with our public funds to engage in what is fundamentally a journey to humanity. So please, we want to be resources and support you and help guide you in that matter as well.
thank you, thank you. I'm gonna just quickly read out or verbally answer Rhonda's question. If I can find the question really quickly. So Rhonda is asking, do we, yes, here it is. Rhonda's asking about any direct lines to the prisons, and I can't find the question, but Rhonda, you know your question. I can just read it out to you based on what another comrade has shared. So we do not know any direct lines. Lines of these numbers are usually answered by secretaries of the person whose number it is, but they have all turned on their answering machines because the volume is too heavy. So keep calling. Sometimes our authorities or the guards will actually go to the incarcerated person and plead with them to tell to tell them to have their followers stop calling because they can't handle the volume anymore. So, Rhonda, hopefully that's of some help. Thank you for your question. We have a couple more questions here from Joe Piet. Since prisoners with disabilities are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act, are there activists in the people with disabilities movement involved in demanding that Mumia's eyesight crisis be resolved so his vision can be saved? Would anyone have a response to that? Yes.
So I don't have a direct response to that, but I had a conversation with Mumia recently in which he said that he has filed for ADA accommodations. So his PhD studies are halted because he cannot see, but he can get a special tablet that will allow him to continue his work. And that is definitely should be one of our demands. But of course he needs immediate treatment. He is in the process of figuring out how to navigate the prison and his needs. And we should get the ADA involved. Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to take just one more question. We have another journalist journalist question from one of our journalist comrades on here. As a journalist by Betsy Piet, as a journalist, why was Mumia targeted? This appears similar to what is happening in Gaza today with the international targeting of journalists. And then we'll close out. Mama Julia, would you like to take that question? You're on mute.
Could you repeat it?
Yes, sure. The question says, as a journalist, why was Mumia targeted? This appears similar to what is happening in Gaza today with the intentional targeting of journalists.
Mumia is targeted because he is a truth teller. He doesn't even have to be in favor of something. He simply says the truth, what he sees. And that is so very much the case of Anas al-Sharif and his colleagues and all the journalists, all the more than 270 journalists who have been assassinated in Gaza and continue as we speak to be targeted for covering the Gazans, for covering their own genocide. Since when do we have not the right to cover our own genocide? And we are targeted for it on both sides of the Atlantic.
I apologize, I was on mute. I thank you, Mama Julia, for your comments. I also wanted to get folks' attention to a couple of these donation links that we have in the chat. I don't know if everyone can see them, but it says donations for Mumia. Please support in any way that you can. It's www.mobilization4mumia.com/donate. There's a Venmo and a PayPal link as well. So our comrade Betsy Piet has placed those in the chat. Again, you can go and support and share. Also, there's a link that you can click on by Joe Piet and Dr. Alvarez, if there's a way you could if you have the answer to the quote at the end by Mumia, if you can answer uh, uh, Betsy in the chat there, that would be great. So I think we've done. Oh, Johanna, yes.
Yeah, I want to channel Dr. Gabor Mate before we leave, who wrote The Myth of Normal and many other books. He's a New York Times bestseller. And he challenges us to look at systems of authoritarian control and cruelty that dole out violence. And he says if these systems were diagnosed as patients, they would be called sociopaths. That's what we have. That's what we're dealing with. A system that deals cruelty, violence, denies people basic care, and literally is committed to their medical deterioration and blindness. That's sociopathic. And that's what we're dealing with. And we have to take a stand against it, because if we don't, it spreads like wildfire, as we're seeing in American society today.
Thank you. Thank you. Brother Gabe?
Thank you all for joining us this evening. This has really been a powerful press conference. We really worked hard to make sure that we can get all the important information to you all as we begin to coordinate, and organize, and mobilize towards Mumia's freedom, and in this case, towards his health. We are working diligently with you all towards his medical care, towards his medical treatment. please be sure to go towards the numbers that were on the flyer that you may have seen circulating on social media. As I mentioned earlier by Sophia, because the numbers are ringing, because you're getting no response, it's because we are working. They are working because they are so overwhelmed with your calls. So please continue to call, please continue to email. Please make sure that you are doing that and sharing that with your comrades as well with your networks. Do what you can to continue to share out this video, tonight's film. And thanks again to all of our press for showing up. Thank you for our press for showing up tonight. It's very, very important that we share this important, honest, and transparent narrative. We also want to thank Prison Radio for your ongoing coverage with regards to Prison Radio and the commentary that we utilized at the top of today's press conference, and as well other ways that you can also donate towards the cause, which included care for Mumia Abu-Jamal and the ongoing work through prisonradio.org. With that being said, please, family, please organize us with us. Let us know that you want to get involved with us by contacting us with the Campaign to Bring Mumia Home and mobilizationformumia.com, where you can get more information to donate, to get involved, to tap in with this ongoing work. As we've seen in the past year, in the past several years, we've been able to free several political prisoners across the world, and the goal now is to free Mumia Abu-Jamal next. So with that being said, family, thank you very much for tapping in. We will make this happen. We will free Mumia Abu-Jamal, and we will get Mumia Abu-Jamal his medical treatment. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Take care. Peace and power. Free the land.
Love, not fear. Free us all.
Peace.
Peace.